case you just want to say nasty things about people.
Always. We'll fix it.
Matt, what you want? That's what I figured.
Yeah, the days of being out till 4 a.m. at wet wolf parties, those days are gone.
We're all too old.
Are you saying it's ancient history?
Yeah, Monica. Yeah.
What was the 4 a.m. parties on his pads, and you're sort of bed by 11.
I made you laugh though early on a Saturday morning. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment.
So what is Dark Hours?
What are the so?
What are the Dark Hours?
We know.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good
So everybody
morning.
wake up and make it here today, more or less. And this panel's about the Dark Years project, which some light reading.
Yeah.
Is relatively huge. I don't want to say it's ultra like the biggest thing we've ever done because it's not. But it is huge. Yes, and fill the ticket is a challenge to do it. So Dark Eras started as an idea for what would be fun to do in a Kickstarter environment, and the idea that with doing a Kickstarter where we want a lot of interaction with the people in the community, being able to sort of help decide what goes into the book we've seen through other Kickstarters, is really a huge thing in terms of making it fun. So we brainstormed around about the best way to do that and came up with the idea that we didn't want to just say the entire book would be, hey, everybody, we won't decide that you will, because that tends to feel a little bit more like a popularity contest. And so, whichever game lines would have the most stuff, and maybe some game lines wouldn't. So we decided early on we would have a core group. Every single one of the Chronicles of Darkness game lines would have a chapter. And then we would add on to that with ideas. We had a list of ideas, possible Dark Eras, and possible game lines, and which ones could possibly go where, and then really left a lot of that open to the comments sections on the Kickstarter and on our forums and Facebook and stuff. So as we got ideas, we stuck them in there. Hey, Matt. I'm almost about to get to the part where it's going to go over to what you had to do with the book. So
It's just about 10.
no, it's perfect.
We should introduce people.
Okay.
And I don't really want to do a heck of a lot of talking up here anyway. It's really the writers and the developers who made this thing so amazing. So I'm just giving the conceptual start. So did the Kickstarter. As we're doing the Kickstarter, I'm getting amazing kind of ideas and stuff like that. So rather than say, put anything head to head, this or this, we would give a selection of 3. So I think we started with 4, and then went, nah, 4's too confusing, so we just went with 3. And people would vote during the course of it, and that would be the next one that would go up onto it. And then we try another group of 3 things, and people would vote. And it was incredibly exciting and incredibly fun. I know some people really wanted a particular thing that didn't make it in. And then we're, and we've been thinking a lot about that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But as we were doing the thing, it went from a book that was probably maybe, I don't know, 3/5 of this to this size. And as we were looking at that going, people are still excited, and the Kickstarter still has weeks to go. We decided that we couldn't make a book that big, so we would do a second book called the Companion, and everything would flow into that. And how many did we wind up both together? Dark Years.
How many eras?
How many years?
Jesus. 22, because I think we wound up with 13 in the first book and 9 in the second, but I wouldn't swear to that. A lot is
Well,
the answer.
we know how good you are with math.
If I could math, I wouldn't have to word.
So, that's sort of how the whole thing came together. We had so much fun with it. such great response to it. I mean, just never. It was kind of more of a, we want to do something that's just kind of a fun event while we're putting this thing together. Didn't expect to have the huge response that we did. So as we were talking about it then afterwards, and people keep talking about it afterwards, you know, one of the things we couldn't do, because it was all about getting more chapters made, was do fiction. And so, in secret, we worked up a fiction anthology that goes with this, so that you can enjoy, if you're not gaming and you don't just want to read a chapter just because it's fun to read the chapter, you can actually read fiction based on these, on the Dark Eras, and kind of engage with your favorite eras that way. But we're still talking about it, And so today, I just want to let everybody here know, and hopefully out into the ether, that we're going to be doing Dark Eras 2. It'll be similar in setup with the Kickstarter and people being able to vote on things. We may actually change a little bit about how we do the voting, so it's a little less of a competition, but we're still playing around with how the best way to do that is, because we don't want to take away any of the fun. And some of the fun is like really boosting your era. I really love this. So I don't want to take that away, but we also don't want people to be disappointed. So for some of the first ones that we'll be looking at putting in the book, and I think this is probably how we'll go, but we haven't really worked this through all the way.
I'll say it first time you're not.
Yeah, is that if it was something that people were really excited about from Dark Eras 1, the Blitz, we would simply say that's definitely going to go to the book. And then, so that's how we'll do it. We won't do all the lines again and do a whole nother line thing, but we will definitely be keeping an eye on that stuff. So, Dark Eras 2, Kickstarter next year. Expected that we would do an actual publication of it at best late next year, but I bet it'll be 2018 before we actually have it published. But we'll get a Kickstarter out next year so we know what the heck we're working on. And that's about that. These will be available for sale after the panel, or at a certain point in the panel,
If we have time.
if we have time. And of course at our booth, where they're going to be one of the few things that are actually still there to buy. We sold through everything we brought, other than a box of how many? 4?
We magically discovered 4 more copies of Exalted this morning.
So if anybody knows anybody who needs a copy of Exalted, it was in one of the other boxes, and had some paper put on top of it.
I was pulling these out for this, and I was like, that's not Dark Eras.
So that's my thing on it. If you back Dark Eras, or if you bought it after the fact, and please, thank you so much, because this was one of the highlights really of our years doing this project. It was just a blast. And if we're not having fun with this, what do we do? We punch ourselves in the head with hammers. So I'm going to step back then and let the rest of the crew here talk about Matt McFarland, who was lead developer on the project, and had the awesome task of developing the developers who were developing the writers. Many of whom were developers on the line, or maybe almost all of them.
Which writers? No, because we had like 85 million writers on this project. So
Eventually,
a lot of them,
yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the Austrian. No, it was good. It was fun.
And Rose Bailey, who also was coordinating a lot of communication between Matt and us, Onyx as a whole, and trying to make this thing come together. And Matt, who stepped in on development on additional things that came out of Kickstarter, because so many people did, and also spearheaded the idea that no, Rich, we really have to do that. We really have to do that. Let's do that, Rich.
It wasn't really a question.
Yeah. He never phrased it in the form of a question. He would have lost at Jeopardy, but he won. He got the book.
Yeah, it was basically, hey Rich, I'm doing this anthology.
Got to do it. I leave it up to you guys now to talk a little bit. Speakerify.
We've got several other people who worked on chapters.
I don't know who they are.
So do you want? Should I introduce
Yes,
the other
please.
people? Okay, so Neil, did you work on yours?
No, I didn't work
That's
on
right.
Dark
Never mind.
Eras.
I don't. You were supposed to, and then you didn't, right?
Yeah, no.
But that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave Brookshaw developed pretty much everything mage related for both Dark Eras, and who else is? Michelle developed the Geist New Zealand era in the first Dark Eras book, and then she developed a couple of them in the upcoming companion, the second site, and the Forsaken by Rome, which is Werewolf Rome. And who else is in the room? Hi, Monica. Monica wrote, right? Not developed.
Yes, I wrote the 100 Vigil
Doubting
Doubting
Souls.
Souls, and then I worked on the Dice Roanoke era for the Companion, and I have a story in the anthology.
And Megan Fitzgerald is back there, who... Okay, so I know the first thing that I think of about what you wrote, of course, is in the Companion, which was the Year Without a Summer Promethean the Created.
That was really cool.
Oh my God. Like, I mean, I love Promethean anyway, everybody probably knows that, but The Year Without a Summer is the night in which modern science fiction was invented by Mary Shelley, so Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and John Polidori, and that era is my favorite thing ever. Like, that was like, it's basically Lord Byron and Mary Shelley fanfic. That's fine, I love it. So that was really perfect. So I'm sure there's, yes?
I did in fact have a question.
Wait, Mike.
So,
What? Oh, Mike, hi.
It's okay, I'm new, it's fine. It's just-
All right.
Mike's.
we're basically the same person.
Yeah, I know exactly, yeah, so it's fine, yeah.
So, one of the things during the Kickstarter that I was really excited about was what?
Can you tell
We
me
didn't
what
introduce
Mike worked
him
on?
Okay, yeah, we can talk about what Mike worked on, fine.
Thanks, jeez.
So welcome to one of our meetings.
I helped write on the Roanoke Geist companion chapter, and I also wrote the Sea Zone, which is a 1950s New Zealand story in the anthology. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And this
First
was your
published
first
And this was my first publication ever.
publication ever.
Yeah,
All right, did you have something you wanted to add, Neil?
Yeah.
What?
Here you go, Neil.
Neil, you're fired.
Get used to it.
So, one of the things I was really excited about in Dark Eras that didn't actually get in there, one of the proposed eras was the Book of Judges from Hunter, the biblical era thing. Were there any particular Dark Eras that you were really excited about during the Kickstarter
Blitz.
that didn't actually?
Blitz.
Yeah.
It wasn't even my suggestion, I don't think. I can't remember.
I think
where
it was one of the old ones.
Craig.
Yeah, was it?
Craig.
Oh, okay. So anyway, Craig apparently had suggested World of Darkness Innocence during the Blitz in World War II. And I developed the original World of Darkness Innocence, and so yes, perfect, let's do that. And it was like runner-up a couple of times, I think, on the polls. Like, just vote for it a little more. But I mean, I couldn't really complain because I
There
got
was
to
one
be
time
like,
it was leading.
yeah.
And it's, oh no.
Well, and then and I can't really complain because I got Year Without a Summer, so like I got a lot of more Promethean than I thought I would, so that was okay. But like I really want that one, and if we're doing Dark Eras too, I really want to do that one.
I had pitched Hunter World War II in the Pacific, and it was up against Geist Roanoke. So I'm like, how do I pick?
How do you choose between your babies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I really wanted Dark Ages mage, actually in the real Dark Ages, like a brother Cadfile mage.
So like Anarchy?
Yeah.
Can we get Dirk Jack?
Sorry?
Can we get Dirk Jacoby into the thing?
Well,
Like an
no,
intro pod.
yeah.
Probably a game for those.
So I really wanted to do Jazz Age Requiem.
Right?
You know, I've been stealing from Fitzgerald for years for Vampire, so it really seems like a natural fit. You know, I thought we could do some really interesting class struggle stuff, things like that. So I'll be pitching that for Dark Eras too.
And that was actually just because that was like it was in the first batch or the first couple of.
Yeah, that was, I think, the second Vampire we put up.
Right, and I was just like, oh, this. Anytime we put up Vampire, it's just gonna go right through, and this is so cool and everything like that. And then it didn't, and it really shows you like you think something's gonna be like this. Everybody's gonna dig this so much, and then something else comes up. And
that and changing the Lost Transit.
Yeah.
Fanatics.
I've been saying Changeling fans are nuts since like 98.
Yeah, well, they in fact cheated on the first polls.
Well, yes.
So did the werewolf fans. Yeah, the
I
first
think it was
polls.
Changeling or Werewolf I voted for. Oh, Changeling or Werewolf, okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. We did find some the polling stuff had to be fixed up a little bit, but yeah, that's what happens when we do it the first time.
It was really interesting to see eras that we thought were a little fringe really come through as popular in the polls. it's, you know, usually you don't have that kind of feedback designing a book. You just go, I think people will like this, but this time we actually had people going, oh yes, this is why I'm paying for this book, and you know, it's
Oh, the
it's very
Neolithic
exciting.
one, for example.
Neolithic Mage, yeah.
We have made jokes about caveman the rocketing for years. I said,
I'm getting it out, Rich.
Yeah. Yeah. Will you pitch it for the next one? And so the amazing response to it that continues to this day. People still just love talking about that. I think because it's just so different.
Any questions?
So yeah, so we made this book. It was pretty cool. Does anybody have any questions?
Is anybody playing any Dark Eras right now?
What you playing?
Well, we have a Victorian loss, but we're actually, a friend is running, we're just starting a Neolithic mage thing. We're starting to make characters for it, and stuff like that. He's like, you guys have to play this. And like, you know, pretty much like going, look, this is awesome. So we just started making characters for that.
All those years as an archaeologist were not wasted.
So if you guys want to talk about some of the research and the challenges of doing these eras?
Yeah, I'll let them talk about that, because like most of the eras that I did were like 20th century, so.
Writers, volunteer.
So, when Matt first came to me, you know, first of all, like never writing before, I was like, whoa, that's really amazing. And then he was like, but you're gonna work in Roanoke. And I was like, oh, okay. I have no idea about this world. And,
They
you know,
started feeding you wings.
yeah, he was just kind of like, here's some stuff, and
Here's your homework.
yeah, here's your homework and learn. And you know, eventually I kind of grasped it. And also I was kind of, as a young kid, really excited about the mystery of Roanoke and all those sort of things. So that was, you know, at least, it was able to grasp it. I actually had more trouble doing New Zealand due to the fact that I have never been there. At all.
Hobbits there, right?
Yeah, I heard there's hobbits there. And like, so I was like, oh, all right, I'm gonna do New Zealand, and there's rolling green hills and orcs, I guess, I don't know. So, you know, that was very interesting. But I was able to learn about the 1950s kind of class struggle and workers' rights issues that were going on during that time. That kind of really heavily colored my writing on that period.
I was going to say, I developed New Zealand and I lucked out because I had Cam Banks, who is a Kiwi. And really, we talked together about the idea for the Dark Era, so I had to do catch up so that I could develop his work appropriately. But he really brought it with that and all of his experience and his knowledge of his land. And we got to work on a very untouched corner of the planet. It doesn't show up very often in RPGs, and it was nice to give it that representation.
For Requiem for Regina, the Elizabethan vampire era, research was a little hard at first because most popular history written about Tudor England is about the rich people.
Yeah.
And of course, the rich people stuff is really interesting, Elizabeth's court, the Star Chamber, that kind of thing. But, you know, I wanted to do a vampire era, which means walking around London. And so it took a bit, and eventually I found some sources. It took a bit to get that, okay, what are ordinary people actually doing in this city? What does it look like? Because again, you get drawings of a little bit earlier Hampton Court, that kind of thing, but not as much of just what is London, what did London look like? How tall were buildings? Were they thatched roofs? You know, that kind of thing. So that was very interesting, and you know, I came into it thinking, oh, I'm pretty well versed in this period. No, I learned a lot.
So, I have 2 degrees as an archaeologist, and I used
Just
to
throw that out there.
and I used to work in Eastern Europe, and one of the main English language experts on the Vinca culture, which is where the Neolithic Mage is set, is my former boss. So, yeah, I've still got loads of my friends are Egyptologists and historians and archaeologists, so like that kind of resource, I have second-hand access to all kinds of academic libraries and things. So the Neolithic chapter was pretty good, but for Alexandrian Mage, Malcolm Shepherd, who was turned up after we introduced all the writers, he's
Hi, Malcolm.
Hi, Malcolm.
I had to defuse myself before I arrived.
Malcolm has a friend who is a doctor of
She has a
African
PhD
studies.
in African studies. She helped out with the and she has a degree in classics. Katrina Kiefer, PhD, and she was very helpful for. I think for almost everything I did in some respect.
Especially for the Mutapa.
Yeah, for Mutapa in particular.
Because in the Dark Era's Companion, there's a Mummy Mage crossover era which is set in 16th century Zimbabwe, about which there's you really have to have access to academic libraries to research it properly. And
everybody
Katrina really
loves
helped
West
us out.
Africa more in English language resources. So Central South Africa is not, there's not a lot of popular, easily accessible history, so you really have to dig. And I was very fortunate to have her as a resource I could draw upon.
But we do this so that you don't have to.
One of the writers in the companion, there's a vampire / Promethean Black Death era, which was also really cool. And Dimf Nakoi, who's the writer, I was looking for somebody to write that. I'm like, I don't know anybody who knows that era particularly. And she emailed me and said, so you know how a lot of girls go through a pony phase when they're kind of in their tweens? I went through a Black Death phase. I'm like, you're fucking hired. I'm hooked, go. And it turned out really well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really challenging for me is, when I was in college, I did some study in American colonialism, and I had the benefit of having a really wonderful professor that used to dress up as a Puritan and come into class and tell us. He was amazing. He totally went after Disney when the Pocahontas movie came out. He went on all these TV shows, and one of the things that had been impressed upon me was, the importance of having different perspectives and having 360-degree angle on perspectives. The challenge is that a lot of colonial history is written just from the European perspective. So we have a friend in town whose name is Victor Jason Raymond. He's head of the Pro-Brennan Society, and had several coffee conversations with him and just trying to figure out where to get decent reference materials to be able to have multiple perspectives. And then that work carried over can I get one?
No.
Just kidding. That work we were able to build off for Roanoke. So, some of the questions of where do we get these resource materials and how can we properly vet them, we kind of carried over to some things.
Yeah, I had an experience similar to Matt in that when I was doing Forsaken by Rome, all of the hidden classics majors came out and said, I really want to do that. But then we ran into an issue because if you're a classics major, you're focused on Rome. And Forsaken by Rome is actually focused more on Germania. So we had to delve into, what are the tribes that are in Germania at that time and read a lot of Caesar and kind of try and separate out Caesar's viewpoint and get more information on what's going on out in the wilds. So that involved some rewrites, but it ended up being really good, and I'm really looking forward to it coming out.
So I've been trying to get a Roman era Germania werewolf setting to happen since 2007. Rich has heard about it plenty of times, so I was really glad that won the vote and that you put it together. So, thank you.
I think you can hear that unlike maybe other things, where they're going to be in this Cincinnati. The vampires are on Cincinnati, and you get Google Cincinnati and check it out and everything. And bam, your research is really rolling along. This was a pretty intense amount of work.
Yeah.
For the writers, I think it was probably the biggest block of research a lot of people told me this was the most research they've done on anything that they've written.
This is the most researched project I've been a part of since Requiem for Rome, the last big historical thing.
Ancient Mysteries for me, I think, was the.
Megan, did you want to talk about the research you did?
Oh yeah, sure. For me, for your December, the biggest challenge for me was that you have the sources that are about the romantics. You know, you've got Byron's letters and Calvary's journal and the Shelley's shared diary and all of this stuff about the literary romantic revolution of the time. And then you've got all of the sources about the eruption of the volcano and how everybody was starving to death and how like everybody was freezing to death and all of the plague and death. But the things, bringing those two pieces together, there aren't really many sources that do that. So that was kind of the challenge of figuring out, here are these European nobles traveling around and vacationing in Geneva, and then all of these people starving to death everywhere. What do they have in common? So bringing together those things. And of course, the Prometheans at the time are more likely to be on the side of the people who are starving to death, kind of wandering around the countryside, figuring out how to, not how to survive, because the Prometheans are going to survive, but how to relate to the people who aren't surviving, and how, you know, if you're a Promethean and you're generating wastelands everywhere you go, Europe is kind of already a wasteland. So what does that mean for you as a Promethean? You know, are you going to try to help these people? Are you trying to stay away from them and, you know, not make it worse? What do you do? And so bringing those two pieces together is kind of a challenge.
Yes, Neil.
Yes.
Oh, no, wait.
So I'm actually really glad you guys brought up Requiem for Rome, because I remember reading that way back in the days when I was but a mere fan, and I get the flower into the writer and developer that I am now. But a lot of the stuff in Requiem for Rome was I don't want to say lurid, but it was. You had the legend and you had the actual historical fact, and a lot of times in Requiem for Rome, the legend was printed, and it was even stuff that was ahistorical was kind of chosen over other stuff for a sense of verisimilitude and for to kind of fuel the lurid atmosphere of the Chronicles of Darkness. How do you guys feel when you're researching these things? Because obviously it was very heavily researched. What do you do when you come across something that may or may not be ahistorical, or something that's just like too good to leave out, but it didn't actually happen?
Well,
how do you guys balance that sort of thing?
Requiem for Rome was a fairly different project in that what we wanted to evoke was the feel you get reading the Roman historians, who a lot of them were bullshit artists.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
propagandists, yes. So for Requiem for Rome, we wanted to get that feel. So we went with a lot of stuff. I think practically everything in there is from the period, the fairly long period the book covers, but a lot of it is stuff that modern historians doubt. Now, doing Dark Eras was very different, at least for me. I really tried to stick with things for Requiem for Regina that were actually true, and for Into the Cold for Demon, things that were actually true. So this was I guess this was a more grounded one than that one.
I would totally agree with that.
Like for the Hunter Salem era, as Monica had mentioned, a lot of the more well-known books are from a very European point of view. So there was cases where we knew that those books were actually incorrect. So we went against that, people's common knowledge of what was going on during Salem at the time, because there's been more research since then, but it's not as well known, and of course Hollywood pays no attention to it. So we actually had a chance to refute a few of the more common misconceptions.
What made you guys choose to go with verisimilitude over a sense of, I guess that sense of fantasy, I guess that sense of like Hollywood? Was there a reason behind it?
Well, for me, Requiem for Rome really was us delving into, you used the word lurid, which I think is really good, a more fantastic setting. In some ways, it was a historical sword and sorcery kind of book for vampire. whereas this was supposed to be sort of snapshots of the Chronicles of Darkness throughout time. So, you know, being more constrained, being more grounded, helped create the sort of continuity of history that runs through the book.
I mean, generally my take on a lot of these things, and it was a great one, or some of our discussions about Scion have been, can only go so far into similitude, or, you know, as accurate as you can, until you start losing people's interest. Well, and because it's just, oh my God, more details, how am I supposed to know all this stuff?
Limited word count helps with that.
Yeah, well, not
Because these are these little chapters. You couldn't go too deeply down into that.
And not just that, but eventually you do have to butt up against the fact that there are vampires, but there weren't actually vampires.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, after a certain point, you have to say, like, all right, well, how does the inclusion of all this actual, real, literal, supernatural shit, regardless of what people believed? No, but in the Chronicles of Darkness, these things are really there. So, I mean, for Dark Eras, I agree with Rose and everyone. You know, we err on the side of historical accuracy, but I don't want to read a history text. I want to read about fucking vampires or, you know, mages or whatever.
There was a couple times during the development of Roanoke where Mike specifically and Eloy, who's not here, I had to say, this is not a history book. This is a Geist.
That was a very common red line for me, because one of my writers in the companion is actually a historian. I'm like, I don't care about this part, I want my beasts.
Yeah, I was really appreciative of the research you guys were doing, but I'm like, this is still an adventure.
Right, so that's the basis
for
for
still ghosts here.
Yeah.
It's a real thinker we're not plagued by spirits.
No,
that wander
exactly.
around.
Michelle, what did you?
Oh, no, I was just gonna add in, that I no longer remember what I was going to say.
I just wanted to mention that for Doubting Souls, one of the things that was part of the reason why when Matt and I were talking about, you know, whether or not I would write the Hunter Vision thing or whatever. The whole reason why I wanted to do it is because of Hollywood getting it. Because of how many times we've seen really crappy iterations of Salem witches and, you know, all of these fantastical things. Because it was kind of like my personal thing of, well, there's all of these things that led up to it, and I can still put it in an alternate history context. But at least let's try to, take out the, inverted pinnacles and call a spade for what it was. So, I mean, for me, I was motivated to kind of look at what was already done badly, and basically, I just kind of, went like this, and I was like, I'm a creator, and I was gonna, be able to work with Matt under his direction.
Some of the errors, right, I mean, you dealt with it during the Kickstarter. And
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, some of the errors had some sensitive subject matter that has been traditionally either Europeanized or just Hollywoodized. Because we can only get these actors, so that's what we're going for the story. And so that was really the benefit of doing all this research, was to kind of pull back on that stuff. So that when we put it out there, it's not, well, let's just say, we know what direction the Thames is running in the end versus some of our books back in the day. So there was a strong basis.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I ran into. I worked on Shattered Dreams for World of Darkness, whatever.
You're the guy who developed the book.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really struggled with was agency for these indigenous populations that were like, oh, these are the people Cortez ran over. When they had the assets of this massive empire stretched all the way out, and then making that work and giving voice to those people who never had voice in my high school class.
And I mean, for what we're doing, what I struggle with in things like that is, when is the game set? When are the players going to be doing stuff? Because I only have so many words, and I have to present enough of the setting that the players, the people with the dice in their hands, can play in this setting. And it's not that I want to strip agency away from anyone, but I have to present enough context that you can make use of it at the table. So it's definitely a balancing act.
Covering a long period of time, like my chapter covered over 100 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a long period of time to take snippets and try to give information to players so they can play in that era, not withdraw.
Each era is a little different, but Matt gave us all a master outline for our chapters, and it's notable that the master outline has a way big section for what's happening now, and less of one for what happened before.
It's more actual guidelines.
It seemed to me that the big idea for Dark Hero was mostly just supplying enough background information so that the games could run games in a specific era. But for certain other things, for me, like with the Alexandrian Mage era, it's at least historically an era that I have a lot of familiarity with, being a classics manager and very into that. But I found it while it contained a lot of great information about how Mage fits into that period and lore information, I found that it didn't really give a lot of mechanical help that I was looking for. Like, I can't remember how much equipment was in there, and I was hoping to see maybe a couple skill changes or some
That was at the front of the book. Like one of the things that Matt wisely did when organizing it was to put all those history changes that would, for medicine and for skill changes, and they're at the front of the book. I know for me, for the work I did, I tried to put enough things about material culture so that people would know what the money they spent was and what it was worth, and what goods were generally around. But there's only so much space.
We got a weapons and armor chart for the period in, but
Yeah, and all of that weapons and armor chart is on the Dark Era screen.
but because the Alexandrian era covers like 5 cultures spreading quite in a long way from Egypt to India. There's only so many words in one of these dark eras in order to make the book even as marginally printable as it is. and the Alexandrian one is one of the ones that got expanded. But even then, if you're trying to take 5 cultures and explain how mages fit into all of their religious and supernatural beliefs at the time. Once you've done that, you don't really have enough room to explain how Indian weapons differ from Macedonian ones.
The other thing is too that in the Chronicles of Darkness system, a weapon adds dice. That's all it does, really. There are a couple of them that have little side effects, but for me, as a GM, I would rather have that information, and then I'm like, oh well, it's a curvy knife rather than and I'm sure that the history behind them and how the fighting styles work is really fascinating. But at the end of the day, it adds dice.
It's a pretty abstract system, yeah. So.
And books like Armory and Armory Lord
Right.
are very accessible.
Dig into that. Yeah.
And we were much more invested, and it was a much higher priority for us to do things like point out that people at the time did believe in magic, but they thought that it was highly disreputable. They thought it was for those look like weirdos, and that the traditional thing of a mage being a wise person who is listened to is something that happened after that. Greek and Macedonian people that did believe in magic, but they thought that it was for they thought that it was for freaks.
I think you probably fall in that difficult zone because you're writing it so that you can have fun with it and have enough information to play with. If you really don't know much about it, and then when you get into the level you know a bit about it, but let's not say 2 degrees, then you look at this and go, I know this much. I know there's more because I've seen more in my textbooks or in things I've studied, but it's not in there. So what's happening with that? And so
on the other hand, the Neolithic chapter is probably the most overtly supernatural setting because it's set before the Sundering, so there's spirits wandering around everywhere, and there's absolutely no masquerade. Everybody knows about mages and werewolves and things. If you don't check the trees for faces when you go wandering through the woods, you might come back claimed. But it was really important to me that, even down to the artwork of it, that the houses in the pictures look like the houses that people actually have that we said, like, you know, they have domesticated cows already. They live in little villages and like they farm. They wear clothes which, frankly, you could kind of wear today. Like Neolithic women wore like miniskirts and essentially t-shirts. They were not cavemen, and getting that into the chapter was important because I thought, like, I thought that a lot of readers wouldn't be quite as familiar with that kind of culture, so people would need more pointers.
And it's, again, that kind of grounding that I really think was successful in the project is really sort of putting you in the position of being in the world. Because that's one of the hard things, at least for me as a storyteller, is getting the aesthetics of a historical era in a way that's in a way that's compelling and evocative and accurate. So the stuff that we had in Neolithic Mage really helps you visualize it. When your player goes off on a weird tangent, you have something to fill in with description. That kind of thing.
One of the things that I encouraged the developers to do, there's an inspirational media section in each of the eras. And it varies in length, because there's more material for some eras than others, but one thing that I really tried to get them to do was give me at least one movie, if it exists. Give me something that, because, not everybody is a reader, and especially when you're talking about historical stuff, it's not always very accessible. But if you pop in a DVD, which are those things that they used to show movies on before Netflix, then at least, you can get some visual sense of close to what it's like. And it's, like I said, it's easier for some eras than others. For, Year Without a Summer, there's a whole couple movies about it. You can watch Ken Russell's Gothic if you want.
And in mine, I did Shakespeare in Love.
Of course. Well, that's exactly what I was thinking when you said, do they have thatched roofs? I'm going to think back to Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a chapter in there that couldn't be turned into a source book. There's so much material that's available and interesting and would be fun to include if there were the word count.
I think you had a question.
Yeah, it was, I know you all had parts of it that, what for each of you was your favorite era? If it wasn't one that you pitched, what would, in the end, what ended up being your favorites?
Year Without a Summer.
Yeah, Without a Summer.
I love Promethean. I love a lot of the world that are the Chronicles of Darkness. I'm not used to that yet. Chronicles of Darkness games, but Promethean is my baby. And Year Without a Summer, I liked it going in because I love that area of literature, but I was not expecting to love it the way that I did. Those eras are about 23,000 words before you get to expansions. And so I developed, I think, 4 of them in the companion. And the Year Without a Summer draft, I sat down to redline it, and before I knew it, I was done. And my red lines to Megan were, here are a couple of little things to fix. Holy shit, girl! You hit a home run on this. So that was, that was awesome.
I like the eras that show something about that aren't just the modern day setting that's just been transposed into a past, but so the supernatural societies are different. So Alexandrian Mage is before the Pentacle, before the Orders exist. So you can see where the Orders are called, where you can see in Alexandrian Mage where the Orders will eventually come from. And Year Without a Summer, because it's about the creation of the Frankenstein lineage, it's different to modern day Promethean.
Black Death too, actually, because you get not only the Emerani, which was the lineage that kind of preceded Frankenstein, but also there's a covenant of vampires that just stopped after that point.
There's a lost covenant in
we really shook up the covenants from what we do in the modern day for Elizabethan vampire. We have 2 new covenants in there, and they one of them was from the core book. We had said, oh, these people existed at some point, and then we went back and actually put them in Elizabethan. And the other one was, okay, we want to have a pagan covenant, but not the circle of the crone in any way. So we sort of said, well, what about taking bargaining with the supernatural as the touchstone for that? And I was really happy with how that worked out. I've run from the source book now some, and I think it works.
With Geist Roanoke that Monica and Mike worked on, it takes place before the modern society of Sin Eaters. Like, Sin Eaters today have a common language and a common society, and that didn't exist then. So we had to come up with ways for different factions of Sin Eaters to, not only do they not speak the same language, but they don't even view ghosts in the same philosophy. And there was lots of really cool meetings back and forth and crazy ideas. Be like, it'd be cool if we did it. Let's dial that down a little bit. We don't have that much word count. But it was a really neat way of looking at what was Geist like.
The tagline for the book right there. Don't have enough word count.
What were the Sin Eaters like before the stuff in the Sin Eaters core book had developed? Because the Sin Eaters core book talks about how the Twilight communication was in the 1700s, like late 1700s. So it was a very modern development, and we're like, okay, let's go before that. And I also wanted, as much as I loved your Geist chapter, I wanted to show a different section of the Sin Eaters world.
No, I think that I really love the two of those together,
right,
because it shows how much variation there can be in location, in time. You know, you can play Geist in so many ways, and this really kind of solidifies that it's not the same game always,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
If I could compound or expand on that, it's also the 1950s setting is very much, in my opinion, about living and life in this other side of the coin that is Geist, and making the deal and doing those sort of things, whereas Roanoke is all the spooky, kind of weird,
Yeah.
like there's a woods out there and we don't know what's in it and we're going to all to hopefully not die, so.
Just a couple things of booking. First of all, how many people here did back the Dark Years Kickstarter?
Thank you for that.
Good to see you. Well, thank you so much. Does anybody need our brochure for this year? Does anybody not have it yet? Got it there. And while I'm up and moving towards you guys, anybody have tickets to this event?
Other events that I forgot to give them.
If you have tickets for any of our other panels, you can take them too.
This is going to be the meeting with them. Sure.
I walked in with Bruce, I was
But I'm also
yeah, I can still watch the game.
Kind of plan out the proposal a little bit in advance.
To the extent that we can, obviously, we're improvising led to a lot of data science.
Yeah, it's going to take a while because we've got
By the way, I voted France as well.
Okay.
There's some people that have questions.
I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
This is a little different, but what book did you actually make that's
I
bigger?
always have a loop.
Exalted, Beige.
Was Mage there?
Mage
That's
20.
the Ascension.
Oh,
Mage
right.
20.
I was gonna say.
Yes,
sir.
With paint counters like that, I think everything in the book is fantastic. Were there any ideas for any eras and pairings with themes that didn't work out because, like, either suggested
Oh my
externally
goodness.
or internal, and specifically like story-wise? I'm not looking to mock suggestions here. They just kind of petered out as you examine them.
Can I talk about this
Yes.
really fast? So before I even got into this project, I was on there and I was voting, and like me and all my Chicago friends, they put out a Columbian Exposition and Mage, and, and this was for Chicagoans. I mean, this is like us showing ourselves to the world. This is Like everyone has this passion about this thing that happened in our city, and it just didn't happen. And it was so sad. All of us were all so sad. So.
Yeah, I think the Colombian Mage Vampire thing didn't happen because that was before we were putting, the first poll we didn't put up descriptions for the different eras, we just said when it was. And I think, frankly, I think people thought, oh, World's Fair, that's a happy thing.
Right.
Right.
H.H. Holmes happened.
I think that's honestly why Year Without a Summer got voted
what I
in,
wanna get
because it
to
had a
now, like I said
description.
earlier.
Yeah.
And I think there was enough information about it that people went, oh, like, yeah, I didn't think of that. And like, I think if it had just said Promethean Year Without a Summer, they would have been like, yeah, right, where's Chancellor? So.
I would have been, but
Yeah.
you know, is there anything that didn't, you know, like the Colombian thing you was talking about, is there anything like, you know, that didn't make it? Are you guys going to try to throw that back up for the second one? And see if like anything, if there was anything.
Well, there's some things that we offered that didn't make it into this book that we're gonna, you know, aim to put into the Dark Years too. So
We're still.
But specific things that people were working on that was cut out and now is some incredibly brilliant piece of golden writing that you'll never see because we didn't publish it. No.
Very little was actually cut. I mean, during red lines, there's always writers who go over their count, and you know, as developers, we have to be like, we love you, but this whole section has to go, not because we don't like it, but because we only have 23,000 words and you're eating too much word count. But I mean, that's early enough in the process that it's not like it gets left on the cutting room floor at the last minute. And the nice thing too about print on demand is that we're not as beholden to a particular page count. So it means that it's less likely that we have to cut something out at last minute. It's actually used for layout purposes more than anything for it to do that. Because Cheney emails me and says, we need to cut 3 pages from this chapter. And then I tell him no.
Or half a description.
Yes.
We could fit it in.
Right.
Other questions?
Add 3 pages.
So, one of the things we're going to do here, and if you're interested, we can do it, is that we do have Dark Eras anthology, and we have a lot of people who wrote on this, also wrote on Dark Eras itself, as we see, talking to everyone. And if you want to pick up a copy of this here where we are, they're $9, and we've got little square things here we can punch things in with, even at this meeting. And you've got everybody here who could maybe sign them for you if you wanted to. So if anybody's into that, we are here, and the writers are here.
I wrote a story about hobos.
It was awesome. It was so good.
Talking about favorite eras, Promethean Dust Bowl was one of my favorite pages from the beginning.
You know, it's really funny too, like 2 of the Promethean eras are set during times where, I mean, Prometheans are trying to become human, but it's interesting to think of Prometheans walking through, you know, Dust Bowl America or Europe after the volcano erupted and people are starving and thinking, shit, this is what I have to become. And, you know, to which we say, yes, it's still better than what you are, baby. So,
Yeah.
I know that you guys all have great ideas, and I've loved a lot of your ideas and your eras. Yeah.
Can't stop.
But are you taking any suggestions from fans of eras that they might like to see covered?
Absolutely. When we get into the Dark Eras 2 Kickstarter, we will, like the first Dark Eras, we will definitely be talking to all y'all about what you want to see. You know, we've been talking up Innocence Blitz. That was a fan suggestion in the comments.
I mean, we had a list of some that people, different developers and writers wanted to do, but we got an enormous number of suggestions from the community, the Kitchener community, that we slid in there, or people said it on the forums. Hey, that's kind of a cool idea. Everybody else put that up. Take it in.
Okay.
And,
so I need to get a big group of my friends together and like decide on an era and then just keep pushing it on the forums.
Totally game.
And when we get a little closer, we'll probably do some writing about it too, taking suggestions that way.
Tell us in the comments,
We're not quite there yet.
One of the things, one of the things that I'm hoping to see is that that we don't just focus on European history for the next one. That was part of the reason why I proposed the Thuggee from India and being able to find people for that, because we do have a lot of European history that absolutely needs to be covered. I'd love to see more cultures.
Anybody want a book?
Or later on, you can come down to the booth and we'll have these for sale as well. So don't. And also, if you just have something you want signed by one of the writers, that's cool too. Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you.
So we'll start reading it immediately once I get home, because I don't have
So I
any time
had
at night.
a-
I volunteer.
One of the areas that I'm very I had a whole class.
I love dancing.
I was gonna say, I might fight somebody in the street for no appearance, but
You know, a lot of
so I will ride her again.
Obviously, what Rich would have to say, but you knocked it out of the park on Innocence, so I would really like to give you the
I'm
next
actually
instance.
really into this world and everything like that, so yeah.
Well, I don't know, it's really nice fires.
Jason's working on
I
Innocence.
only started role playing in the last like 4 or 5 years.
With the day job.
I didn't realize it was really on
I or someone.
most of my life.
And he said, yeah, it was really derivative of ball favors. And I said, Dennis. You could see like the, I have made a terrible football. And I said, what exactly did you feel was derivative? And he said, well, I haven't actually read it. And I said, okay, so it's not derivative, they're working from the same place.
Wow, that's,
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah.
What do you mean doesn't know?
Ultimately, it's the person that's responsible.
I don't write.
Yeah.
I haven't done as much research as when I was. I already know how much
I really think he was open voice vampire. Where he Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm very abstract. I wrote that stuff for he's much more grammar.
Actually, I cut off all my hair because
It's always good to have that,
Anyway, so I just cut it off.
Yeah, it's very, I'm trained as a teacher, so like a lot of my stuff is, just what you saw, this is what you saw, you gotta write it, so this is an outlet where I can be like, no, this is a fun story. Yes, please, here.
As soon as I saw the
I had the drinking night last night.
I do have a paper,
It just took a while.
Sorry about that.
My hotel is next to the room of another hotel.
This is, second, lived in that room.
Okay, I don't really work on it.
Yeah, I know. Can you post it?
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
know I'm going to know who you
It does, right? It always is.
I would sign your book. I suppose I should. I am one of the guys that did this. I don't know. I guess you do you want me to sign here?
I signed on my story title.
It's way nicer than what goes on my check.
Already, I don't even know my door.
We were talking about it the other day, and it's like, figuring out what is somebody, parents are all staff, right? There's some people that when they get it, they're actually showing like, this is so it's like somebody just like not realize all of the
Just like it.
so each of the
I just found Here's a modern warfare, everybody said that you don't have part of it. And then finally anything you want that's I haven't got that yet, so
but they got clever, skipped the scene, and we got to and one guy had played it like I was just telling you know, I still remember making I made all the things I may have recruited some fried chicken. I was talking to James Dossie,
you want me to sign on your
I've known we all live in different places, so I want to see more stuff.
Absolutely.